Welcome to another episode of Respecitons. Today we have a presentation and we hope you'll enjoy.
Many more yet to be born, and I ask you, what are we gonna do? I ask you, my sister, what are we gonna do for them in those crucial times?
Black women were hired throughout these markets, performed many arduous tasks, which included heavy laboring, which sometimes included the hard scrubbing of floors, the washing of walls, the heavy cleaning of bathrooms and kitchens, the moving about of furniture, and last but not least, the washing of loads and loads of laundry for these families. This was oftentimes work that was infrequently done by the local housewife who employed others who had quote-unquote strength and stamina to do these chores. The most dreaded task was window washing, which often posed a real and specific danger to women who were conducting this type of function. Oftentimes, window washing would be even on floors as high as 10 or 12 stories and was dangerous to the individuals who performed them. It was reported that on one or two occasions, women who came from that grouping called the slave market lost their lives because some fell from the windows to their deaths many stories below. So dreaded was window washing that the Domestic Workers Union proposed an employer's contract which outrightly banned this type of activity. Workers also complained that employers were unreasonable and many times unfair in not meeting their financial obligations. Period. Oftentimes, many women from these slave markets would return home without any payment whatsoever to families waiting on this income for the purchase of food and other supplies. One thing I wanted to point out was that most of these women oftentimes came from Harlem and upper Manhattan and had to walk numerous blocks because they didn't have the requisite fare for the train or the buses. At the end of the day, these tired women had to walk back to their homes, some 40 or 50 blocks back home, because they needed to save on the few nickels that it would cost for transportation. So these slave markets were very demanding and at times very unfair to women who participated in it. At times, these women often had to sell their very bodies to sustain their families. So this presentation will look at issues surrounding the slave market. Unfortunately, it's not a very easy topic to deal with, but we hope you'll find some good in it and some redeeming features, however that might be. So hopefully it's a learning process for me, and I hope it will be for you. Stay tuned and enjoy our presentation.
Next story. A paper bag brigade learns to deal with jipping employers. I had quit my first job in revolt, and now at 10:30 a.m., I was back in the Bronx Slave Market, looking for my second job of the day. As I took my place in front of Woolworths on 170th Street near Walton Avenue, I found 5 members of the paper bag brigade still waiting to be bought by housewives looking for cheap household labor. One of the waiting slaves glanced at me. I hoped she would be friendly enough to talk. Tough out here on the street, I remarked. She nodded. I had one job this morning, but I quit. I went on and on. She seemed interested. I washed windows for a lady, but I fired myself when she told me my work was no good. It was as though she hadn't heard a thing. She was looking me over appraisingly. I ain't seen you up here on the market before. You're new, ain't you? I was discovering that you can't just turn up cold on the market. The paper bag brigade is like a fraternity or a sorority. You must be tried and found true before you are accepted. Until then, you're on the outside looking in. Many of the new women came up fresh from the South, one worker told me, and they don't know how to bargain. They'll work for next to nothing, she said, and that makes it hard for all of us. My new friend, probably bored with standing around, decided to forgive my newness and asked about the job I had left. I told her how the fat old lady had accused me of neglecting the window I had so painstakingly washed. She said, "Oh, that's the way they all act when they don't want to give you your full pay." She brushed off the incident as if it were an everyday occurrence. Anyway, you shouldn't have agreed to work by the hour. That's the best way to get gypped. Some of them only want you for an hour or so to clean the worst dirt out of their houses. They tell you you're through, then it's too late, and by that time to get another job. So I said to her, what should I have done? Just don't work by the hour, she repeated laconically. Work by the day. Ask $6 and car fare when you're working in a 3-room apartment. My new friend proved helpful. She told me all manner of things for which to be alert. Don't let them turn the clock back on you, she warned. That's the easiest way to beat you out of your money. And don't be afraid to speak up for yourself if they put more work on you than you bargained for. I asked whether she had tried to get jobs at the New York State Employment Service on Fordham Road. She said she had a card. She said, but there are no jobs up there. And anyway, I don't want my name on any records. When I asked what she meant by that, she became silent and turned her attention to another woman standing beside her. I guessed that she was a relief client. There seemed to be little likelihood of another job that morning. I decided to call it a day. As I turned to leave, I saw a woman coming down the street with the inevitable bag under her arm. She looked as if she knew her way around. "I beg your pardon," I said as I came abreast of her. "Are you looking for work too?" "What's it to you?" she said. Her voice was brash and her eyes were hard as steel. She obviously knew her way around and how to protect herself. No foolishness about her. "Oh, what's it to me?" Nothing, I said. I answered. I felt crushed. I'm new up here. I thought you might give me some pointers. I went on. I'm sorry, honey, she said. Don't mind me. I ain't had no work for so long. I just get cross. What you want to know? When I told her about my morning's experience, she said that they, the employers, they're all bitches. She said it without emotion. It was spoken as a fact, as if she had remarked, the sun is shining. They all get as much as they can out of your hide and try not to pay you if they can get away with it. She too worked by the job. $6 and car fare, I asked. I asked if she had ever tried the state employment office. I can't, she said. I'm on relief. And if the relief folks ever find out I'm working another job, they'll take it off my check. Lord knows it's little enough now, and it's going to be next to nothing when they start cutting in January. She went on down the street. I watched her for a moment before I turned toward the subway. I was half conscious that I was being followed. At the corner of 170th Street and Walton Avenue, I stopped a moment to look at the Christmas finery in Jack Fine's window. A man passed me, walked around the corner a few yards on Walton Avenue, retraced his steps, and then stopped by my side. I crossed Walton Avenue quickly. The man was so close on my heels that when I stopped suddenly on the far corner, he couldn't break his stride. I went back to Jack Fine's corner. When the man passed me again, he made a lewd, suggestive gesture, winked, and motioned me to follow him up Walton Avenue. I was sick to my stomach. I'd had enough for one day. Jobs. Jobs. The great writer from the Renaissance period and Zora Neale Hurston. Just to take a little momentary break. This is the story about 4 people and jobs. It's called Everybody, Somebody, Anybody, and Nobody. There was an important job to be done. Everybody was sure that somebody would do it. Anybody could have done it, but nobody did it. Somebody got angry about that because it was everybody's job. Everybody thought anybody could do it, but nobody realized that everybody wouldn't do it. It ended up that everybody blamed somebody when nobody did what anybody could have done. That's Zora Neale Hurston. Just a few more stories from what Ella Baker and Marvel Cooke, in their investigation of the Bronx Slave Market. These are the stories that they garnered from those who were working on the market. It was that muggy day after the 2-day Christmas holiday, but there was no holiday cheer in the air. The paper bag brigade assembled unwilling, slowly. These women knew, even better than I, that there would be little trading on the market today. I waited with 6 others, 1 hour, 2, 4, gave up and left. Then a young couple approached, looked us all over, and bargained with the woman next to me. I didn't blame them for not choosing me. She was younger, obviously more fit. She went off, trailing behind them. I was alone. I was drenched in the rain. My feet were wet. I was about to give up when a little old woman with a bird-like face asked if I wanted a few hours' work. I let my fellow workers down, for I went off with my new madam with a bad verbal contract, 75 cents an hour for an undetermined amount of work, knowing only vaguely that there was general cleaning and ironing to do. What that meant in detail, I didn't know. By the end of the day, I knew very well. Every muscle in my body ached. On the way to her home on Morris Avenue, the little old woman informed me that she had been hiring girls off the street for 20 years and that she'd never been disappointed. I've always picked nice girls, she said. I knew you were nice the minute I laid eyes on you. That pat on the back, in a way, was worse than a kick in the teeth. She says, I was almost afraid to ask you to work. You look like you belong in an office. I glanced down at her. Was it in her mind that the old clothing that I was wearing was too good for a Negro? I couldn't interpret her expression. She had none. What's your name? She said. Margot, I answered, selecting a name close enough to my own not to be confusing. However, 5 minutes later, she was calling me Margie. By the end of the day, I was Mary, a name that to her mind, I suppose, was more befitting to my station. She watched while I changed into my work clothes. She seemed to be taking stock of my strength. Without turning, I could almost see her licking her lips. She had bought a strapping big animal. First, rinse those clothes and hang them on the dryer in the bathroom, she said, pointing to the tub. And then you can dust the walls down all over the house. She handed me a makeshift wall mop. There were endless chores. I ironed a man's shirt, 4 full-length ruffled curtains, and a tablecloth. I took the stove apart and gave it a thorough cleaning. I cleaned and scrubbed the refrigerator, a cabinet, the sink and tub and shelves above the sink. I rubbed all the furniture in the apartment with furniture oil. Through it all, my employer sat unperturbed, watching my every move. Once or twice, she arose from her chair to flick imaginary dust from an area I had already been over. Then she'd sit down again to watch me. She was gentle and persistent and cruel. She had bought her pound of flesh, and she was going to get every ounce of work from it. The payoff came when she asked me to get down on my hands and knees to scrub all the floors, which were covered with linoleum. I just couldn't do it. I realized with some surprise that the ache in my chest I had been feeling all day was just old-fashioned anger. And suddenly it flared. I stood up and faced her. I can't do it. Can't do what, Mary? I can't scrub all of these floors on my hands and knees. This method of scrubbing went out with the Civil War. There were all sorts of methods to make floor washing easier. And if they must be scrubbed this way, why don't you provide a knee pad? My words tumbled over each other, but she caught their meaning all right. All of my girls clean my floors this way, Mary, she said gently. This is the way I like them. I like them done this well. Well, finish this one and we'll call it a day. I gathered strength as I scrubbed that floor. I cleaned it with the strength of all slaves everywhere who feel the whip. I finished my job. After I had changed into my street clothes, this gentle Mrs. Legree counted $3.40 into my hands, exactly what she owed me by the hands of the clock, at least minus my car fare. I was too exhausted to ask about 20 cents. And this final story, some ways to kill the slave market. So it was reported that the slave market is still here and back, and it's back to stay unless something is done to kill it off quickly. This is from the Daily Compass, January 12, 1950. A lot of people, since its arousal by its rebirth in the Bronx, Brighton Beach, Brownsville, and elsewhere, are already fighting to beat back its advance. They want no return of conditions that existed during the last Depression, when wages were driven down to 25 cents an hour. They point to a number of things that can be done. Says Nina Evans, president of Local 149 of the Independent Domestic Workers Union. Our primary aim is to bring these women on the streets into the union. But other things must be done too. We must carry on a continuous and militant fight to bring domestic workers under the protection of the minimum wage and minimum hours law, and under the Workmen's Compensation and Social Security Acts. At present, and this is 1950, the domestic worker is covered by the Workmen's Compensation Law only if she works for one employer 48 hours a week, and by an unemployment insurance law only if she is one of 4 or more household workers employed in a home for 15 days in the calendar year. In the fall of 1939, Bessie Brown was hospitalized after being verbally and physically attacked by her employer, a wealthy, white Mount Vernon couple. The couple had levied blows and racial slurs upon Brown after she refused to leave their mansion without her wages. So with the assistance of the International Defense and Interest from the Domestic Workers Union, Brown sued the employers for assault. Brown lost her case. However, the suit drew public attention, and the not guilty verdict had to be read to a packed courthouse, a victory which might have served as a deterrent to future potentially abusive employers. After painfully rehashing the ordeal, Bessie Brown went on to join a worker resistance program. Bronx Slave Market workers fought back against their employers' abuses. It's unclear when the Bronx Slave Market ceased altogether, although little record of them was found in newspapers after 1950. They may have temporarily subsided in the onset of World War II, which offered Black women alternatives to domestic service through opportunities in wartime industries. However, any significant gains in alternative labor opportunities were not realized until the mid-60s. But the voices are there. The voices speak up, like the voices we heard. We heard the voice of Marian Anderson at the beginning. When we heard the voice also of Zora Neale Hurston. And now I'd like to conclude with the voice of Maya Angelou. You may write me down in history with your bitter, twisted lies. You may trod me in the very dirt, but still like dust I'll rise. Does my sassiness upset you? Why are you beset with gloom? Because I walk like I've got oil wells pumping in my living room. Just like moons and like suns with the certainty of tides. Just like hope springing high, still I'll rise. Did you want to see me broken? Bowed head and lowered eyes? Shoulders falling down like teardrops, weakened by soulful cries? Does my haughtiness offend you? Do you take it awful hard? Because I laugh like I've got gold mines digging in my own backyard. You may shoot me with your words. You may cut me with your eyes. You may kill me with your hatefulness, but still, like air, I'll rise. Does my sexiness upset you? Does it come as a surprise that I dance like I've got diamonds at the meeting of my thighs? Out of huts of industry's shame, history's shame, I rise. Up from a past that's rooted in pain, I rise. I'm a black ocean, leaping and wide, welling and swelling. I bear in the tide. Leaving behind nights of terror and fear, I rise. Into a daybreak that's wondrously clear, I rise. Bringing the gifts that my ancestors gave. I am the dream and the hope of the slave. I rise, I rise, I rise. Thank you.
Oh,